Maurice Curtis was born in Rawene in the far north 3 decades ago. His father was a market gardener and his mother a midwife. When Maurice was young, the family moved to Australia so his father could study for the ministry. Upon returning to the country, the family lived in a number of small towns in New Zealand.
At school I really wanted to be a truck driver or a fitter and turner, but was also a bit of a small-time athlete and loved running and cycling and swimming and the likes, and fell in love with the working of the human body. And it was upon prompting from one of my senior school friends that she actually suggested I should go and study radiography at Unitec. And it was during my second year of radiography training that I went to a number of compulsory neuroscience papers, lectures, and I completely fell in love with the beauty of the human brain and just the intricacy that really makes it such an important organ. And I knew I had to study more about it. It was just so fascinating.
At just 21, Maurice graduated with a master's, and by 25, he had his PhD in anatomy and pharmacology.
Since I was a teenager living in Thames, I always saw God in nature, whether it was out running in the bush or going for a ride on my bike and seeing the countryside. Seeing muscles work, for instance, was always fascinating to me, whether it's out running or walking. Just to see a muscle actually receiving information from the brain on what it was to do to actually allow us to move or to interact with the environment in the ways that we do. It's just simply outstanding to me. And I knew then that I had to learn more about the human body.
Maurice's field of study is neuroanatomy and neuropharmacology. He's currently researching stem cell production within the brain in response to a variety of neurodegenerative diseases.
My research interest is really in how the brain can respond to the environment and repair itself when the brain is actually injured. So, for instance, in Huntington's disease or Alzheimer's disease or stroke, the brain does actually make some sort of an effort to repair itself, but unfortunately most of the time that effort is too little effort, too late. And so that's where as scientists step in and we try and improve the brain's ability to make new brain cells, to get them into the right area of the brain that's degenerating. So hopefully down the track we might be able to treat brain diseases with the brain's own stem cells.
Maurice's area of expertise took him to Sweden, where he teamed up with a group of scientists at a stem cell laboratory at Gothenburg University. Here he focused on trying to discover ways to make stem cells migrate towards sites of injuries in the brain. It was like a scientific playground for Maurice, which has now become a major part of his career.
One of the fascinating things for me about the brain is just how much of what we do is actually tied up in the different parts of the brain, be it the motor cortex that controls all of our movements, to the sensory cortex, which is very involved in what we actually feel on the outside of the body, whether it's the part of the brain that is involved in memory and learning, or the part of the brain that controls our emotions and our intelligence and so on, or whether it's the part of the brain that is involved with allowing us to actually see. All of it is tied up in this organ, the brain, and that really is an amazing amount of information that gets stored here in the brain. I think one of the things that also amazes me is when you look at the individual parts of the brain, you see many, and you look down the microscope, you can actually see thousands of different cells which are all intricately lined up, all layered perfectly so that they can actually carry out the job that they're meant to do. If there was any sort of disruption to that layering, then the functioning of the brain would be compromised. But for most of us, we live a long life with our brains functioning quite normally, and these cells are perfectly aligned to allow that functioning to take place. That intricacy, that level of complexity is really one of the ways that I see God. The notion that this might all have happened by chance is just absurd to me. When you've seen the complexity, you wonder how that could be something that happened as a chance act. When I look down the microscope, I can definitely see God's planning in the intricacy of the cells and of all of the fibres that interconnect, and all of those pathways that have to work intricately in order for the body to work properly. I'm not saying that I spend every waking minute of the day or every minute at work thinking about God, but when I am doing my work, I do often stop and think about the amazing things that I see down a microscope, whether it's looking at a whole human brain or just looking at God's creation in terms of the human body in general. It's really quite amazing.
In a world-first discovery, Morris headed up a team of researchers who discovered the rostral migratory stream in the human brain. His work has been published in many prestigious medical journals, but his real passion lies in finding a cure for those affected by degenerative diseases.
Although the beauty of the human brain as a thing to be studied is very satisfying, the real motivation for me to study the human brain is to look at human diseases in the hope that one day there'll be more treatments available for the various neurodegenerative diseases that affect people out there in the world. We hope in the near future that we'll be able to treat people with neurodegenerative diseases such as Parkinson's disease and Huntington's disease. But of course these things do take a lot of time. Things have to be tested, we have to check for efficacy and for safety and so on before we would actually ever trial this on patients. But if I could assist in just advancing one of these treatments, then that for me would be a dream come true. I really feel like I've been blessed to be able to see the fingerprint of God in the intricacies of the brain. And I also feel that God has blessed me with the ability and also the opportunity to be able to show others this intricacy as well.